Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest will be Mr. Irwin Carmichael. He's the sheriff. He's the captain for Mecklenburg County Sheriff Department. How you doing there, Mr. Carmichael?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me tonight.
Great. Thank you, sir. You're a proud father, devoted husband, retired Charlotte firefighter. You're inducted into the Martial Art Hall of Fame, 9th degree black belt, author, owner of multiple martial arts studio DVDs, and you are producer of some DVDs. Describe yourself, sir?
Well, you know, I started with the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office in 1986. And when I started with the Sheriff's Office, we only had 75 officers. Today, we are 1,300 employees. And seeing the agency grow, you know, just several years ago, we were close to 3,000 inmates. You know, today, we're under 1,700. And the reason is the great work the Sheriff's Office does.
Correct.
Right now, we have inmate programs, okay, like culinary, carpentry, horticulture. What we're doing is take an example of the culinary program. When a person is in our system, the justice system is going to return 95% of all inmates back out in the community. So it's our goal when we return them, we want to return them as productive members. We want them to be taxpayers, not tax burdens. And we're doing this through the programs. So take the culinary program, for example. There is a Serve Safe program that people have to work in restaurants. So they're able to get this certification while they're in jail. So then when they are released, we're partnering with the business community. And then they have employment when they leave, so then they're not coming back to our jails. So that's why our inmate population is moving down. And it's the great work of the justice system and, like I said, of our officers and our agency. And then looking at our kids that are coming up, our youthful offenders. We never really have the chance to affect a child till ages 16 and 17 in our jail. And we are the only only jail in the state of North Carolina that has a high school in it. The only one. And that is something that while they're in there, it's mandatory that they have to attend the high school program. So they're going to be able to get their high school diploma. So when they are released, that now they will be able to gain employment and not come back to our jail. The programs are so successful. I actually talked to a person that has spent 4 decades in the jail system, and he told me, he said this is the first time, because of the programs that he is receiving while being incarcerated in the jail, that now when he is released, he will never come back to our jail system. So
that's great. That's great. How do you get the individuals that's in the inmate system, how do you get them involved in the program?
A lot of times they want something to do, okay? So it's voluntary that some of them come in. Not our youthful offenders, they have to attend the classes. But the other inmates, they pick what their skill may want to be. So like the carpentry, the horticulture, and then like I said, the culinary. A lot of people, they want to cook. So we'll give them the tools to succeed. And that's crucial to being successful and running these programs in the jails.
Captain Carmichael, I know you're big on safety and crime prevention. Why is that?
You know, when I was hired in 1986, I started in the crime prevention program that I conduct is based off of criminal interviews. I've interviewed criminals that have attacked, raped, even killed to find out the reasons why. Their common holds, grabs, situations that they're placed their victims in. And this is what I cover in the class. This whole program comes from the criminals. I've interviewed like Henry Louis Wallace, the serial killer.
Right.
Yes, Ray Caruth, Van Brett Watkins. So I've taken all this information. I've interviewed child pedophiles over the years to find out information. That way there we can to pass this information on to the community to try keeping people safe. Okay, and to probably stop preventing a bad incident. I've already had one lady, she said 2 weeks after she attended my program, her life was saved because of what she learned in the class. So it's crucial. It's like there's looking at elements of crime. There's 2 elements for any crime to happen. Okay, one is intent, the other one is opportunity. Which one you think most people have control over? It's not you. We can never control someone's intent.
Correct.
If we could, I would be out of business. We all would be out of business in the justice system because we would just go in, reprogram criminals to be good people. But that we're not able to do that. We cannot control that intent, but opportunity we can. And I'll give you an example. Interviewed a criminal who attacked a lady at one of our local hospitals. Lady gets off from her second shift job at night. She's walking out to a car. As she's walking out, if she just looked over to the right, she saw a guy hiding behind a bush. But it's 11 o'clock at night. What does this lady have? It's called tunnel vision. It's time to go home. She's walking straight. Just as she gets beside the bush, the guy jumps out. He grabs her from behind. She screams. He takes off. He's apprehended, taken down to Mecklenburg County Jail. I was working the booking room that night. As I was booking this guy through, I asked him, I said, why? Why did you attack her? And his reply was, hey, opportunity. He said right beforehand, 2 ladies had come out. He said he did not want 2, he wanted 1. He also stated the lady presented a weak image. And you know, weak image represents the West Side rapists we had in our city many years ago. The guy raped 11 victims. Who'd he attack? 50, 60, 70-year-old ladies at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. They want the weak, they want the strong, they want the easy, they want the hard. This is the way they think. If you think about a lion or a tiger, you know, when it picks its prey, it does not pick the biggest, the strongest, and the fastest. It will always pick the weakest, the slowest, and easiest. And that is the exact way our criminals are. So my whole goal is to be able to spread this information to everyone. It's like taking child safety, okay? I teach a program called Kids Awareness Response, or Success for Safety for Kids. And it's based on the interviews I've done over the years. A child pedophile will, it's been stated that they could molest a minimum of 80 kids before they're ever caught. Because the children they're terrified to ever speak about it. This is why I would never, ever send my child to a public restroom by themselves. Why? That is a child molester's haven. They say they have a private stall to molest a child in. They said they would threaten that child a child will never speak about it for 10 years. So that's why, again, an average child molester can molest a minimum of 80 kids before they're ever caught. And a lot of people say, well, how do we combat this? I got an older male child, and the mother says, I can't go in the bathroom and I can't take him into the women's bathroom. Well, this is what the pedophiles have told me to do. They said, if you go to the restroom, prop the door open, send your child to the closest urinal. Have a conversation with them. As long as that child is talking, you know everything's fine. When that child stops talking, we got a problem, and that's your time to go in. This is, like I said, this comes from these interviews. It comes from the pedophiles. In Mecklenburg County, right now, we have around 980 registered sex offenders. It's our job as your sheriff's office that we check on every single one of them, and we're going to know where they are. And we have a little system that if you want to know where all the registered sex offenders are, just go to our website and you'll be able to see where everyone's located. You'll be able to see if they're in your neighborhood. We have a program that if you register your home address, if we register a sex offender within 1 mile of your home, we will email you. We will notify you. We will let you know. And you need to know who's in your neighborhood.
Your crime prevention classes, when do you teach them, and how does someone, get into those classes?
Right. We do the classes, 24/7. I mean, if there's a request for a class, we would do them. What we normally just ask, especially in Mecklenburg County, if you have a group and organization, a civic group, a church group, just contact me. You can contact me. My number is simple. It's 704-391-9999. Contact me. We'll be glad to schedule a time. I come out. A church group, I do. The ones that can benefit are children, women, men, elderly.
Correct.
So everyone can benefit from the program. In the child class, what we teach in it is what I call a lot of times is stranger danger. Okay, we do scenarios in it. So I take like kindergarten, kids from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. We sit there and I do scenarios with them. They do the wrong thing the first time, and then I teach them to do the right thing the second time. Because, you know, the scenarios that we do, like just getting a child to come over, talk to me, and get them to get into my car. It's amazing that a lot of times I have probably a 99.9% success rate of convincing them to get into my car the first time. But then once we teach them to do the right thing, they will never get in a stranger's car. And then also we go through gun safety in the home. We talk about kids. What I do is I bring a prop gun, and it's just a metal gun that I sit there. I get a child, maybe a first, second grader, and I get up and I just simulate that I'm their best friend. Okay, if they're 6, 7 years old, I'm a year older than they are, so they're going to listen to me a little bit more. And I say, you come over to my house, and we're playing, and what we do is I simulate that their best friend is my son. My son's name is Rodney. So I just pretend I'm Rodney, and I sit there and here's a gun. We find a gun. I say, you know whose gun that is? And they'll say, no, that's my dad, because you know my dad's a police officer, and he doesn't know I know where the gun is. And so then when I get them to pick it up, they point it up to the ceiling, they squeeze the trigger. Okay, and this is a fake gun. And you're talking to the kids, and I ask the kids at the end, I teach them to do the right thing, because what would they want? If they were a parent, their parents want them to go tell an adult or tell them. If you're over at a friend's house, I tell them, you tell your friend's parents or tell an adult if you find a gun. And I always ask them, the gun I show them, I said, is this real? And they always say, no, it's not real. It was a real gun. The sheriff's office melted it down for the class. So I always ask them, are plastic guns real? And all of them say, no, plastic guns are not real. And I sit here and do this. This is plastic, and it is real. So you never know what is real and what is not. So many kids in Charlotte and across this nation lose their lives every year because of accidental shootings and guns in the home. So being I teach responsible gun ownership, that parents have to keep these guns under lock and key.
What's your views on the gun laws that we have in our state and in our country?
Well, if you look at, a lot of people ask about concealed carry,
Correct.
Okay? And concealed carry in the state of North Carolina, they've issued close to 500,000 permits. And it's still true today, not one has been used in the commission of a felony. Not one person's went out and committed murder, robbed a bank. So law-abiding citizens will abide by the law. The problems that have happened in the past few years, like Columbine, Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, all these mass shootings, normally those are with the mentally ill people. And we live in a different society today. You know, years ago, we never had this. When we were kids, did we have kids years ago going into schools, going into churches, going into movie theaters and killing people? No. Yeah, right. Why is it today? And there's been a lot of studies, and especially law enforcement, we're studying up on this. And one of the things that we've found is it really comes from a kid at West Paducah. Okay, this is where they really started understanding what happened. This kid had never fired a gun in his life, but he had 3 years of practice on what? A video game. Okay. He wanted to kill his girlfriend. So he goes to the neighbors, steals a gun. Night before, he goes in the backyard, he shoots a few rounds into the ground to have transition fire. So he knows what it feels like to fire a real gun. He walks in the next morning. His girlfriend is in a prayer circle. He walks up to her first, shoots her. His feet stay planted. Everyone starts running. Boom, 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 boom. 8 shots, 8 direct hits. He never missed, and he killed 3 of them. You know, most of these mass shooters, at the end, what do they always do? They commit suicide. Right. He didn't. So the police were able to interview him. They said, you tell us you only wanted to kill your girlfriend. Why did you keep shooting? And his reply was, that's what I do in the video game. He said, I don't shoot one time and put the gun up. I get the high score. You know, if you think about it, we're programming kids to get to the high score. Columbine, prior to the shootings, what were both of them doing? They spent a significant amount of time playing first-person shooter games. Sandy Hook, Adam Lanza, what was he doing right before he went into Sandy Hook, into the school? he's playing first-person shooter games in the basement. This is where I know of kids, and I teach everyone, to people who go through my classes, I tell, if your kids play video games, make sure they can detach from it. I know of kids that have killed their parents because the parents told them to get off the video game. And you got to look at the violence that are in these video games. The most violent game my son had for years was John Madden football.
Correct.
The most violent game, because if you gotta look at what they're exposed to, and this is because of these interviews now that I see. We got to detach. You remember years ago the Gunsmoke video?
Yes, sir.
Or the show. How were we alerted, or the parents were alerted, that someone was going to die in the episode? Is if Matt Dillon was standing over a grave at the beginning of the show, that was the indicator to the parents that someone was going to die in that episode. Is there any warning today of what kids will see? No, there is no warning. So this is why we got to really be involved in what our kids are exposed to, what they're in touch with. And you know, a lot of people say, well, the video game's the babysitter. It's the worst babysitter you can ever have. You got to be able to detach. It's like my son, whenever I would say, Rodney, dinner, he had to immediately shut off the machine and come to dinner, or he loses it for 30 days, okay? You got to make sure they're able to detach and be in touch. When he would go over to friends' houses, I'd call the parents, what kind of video games you have? Because I want to know what he's going to be playing over there. He wanted to play the $1 billion game for years, what's called Grand Theft Auto. And I told him, I said, as long as you're in my house, you'll never see that game. Because what does that video game teach? Rob banks, kill police, rape women. I mean, you're a thug.
Correct.
That's not what I want my child exposed to. So that's why I tell the parents, just be in touch with the kids. Stay connected with them, because as they're coming up, there's a lot of exposure to that we didn't have when we were kids. That's why we didn't have these things. We're having them today. We got to look at the reason and the root cause of it.
How do you deal with the parents, the single parents who are away from the home and they are not as into the child's life because of the work, and they're not able to see things like that? What suggestion do you give to them about that?
Right. Well, I'll make this twofold here. Latchkey kids, a lot of times we call. If kids are at home, and especially if they're home alone, what you need to do is control what they have there. Okay, if there are video games or certain video games they probably shouldn't be in touch with, try communicating as best as possible, okay, with your child. And you know, team up. I mean, if you got a neighbor or something, can check on the child, keep in touch with the child, do that. They need structure. And I'm not saying all video games are bad or what the kids get involved. You just got to be in touch with them of what they are involved with and try controlling that environment. Because the last thing